Dmitrious Bistrevsky. How are you? And how was that pronunciation?
That was good. That was good. But also, I am not picky because people butcher it all the time. Basically, you could sound it out, but it's intimidating to look at.
Yeah, it is intimidating to look at. I've broken it down phonetically, and I only got a good, which I feel like a B grade from you. I'll have to work harder for next time.
I'll give you an A- just because of how bad everyone else does.
It's an improvement on the rest, basically, but it ain't perfect. All right. Can I just go with Darth from now on, then?
Yeah, I go by Darth Demetrius.
Okay, Darth Demetrius. That's easier for me. Thank you. So you are a circus performer, a costume actor, and I know we've only just met, but I'm going to say this. You're also a liar. Am I right in saying that you reach out to a Star Wars fan friend of yours to help you prepare for the role as Darth Vader by telling them it was for a fan film?
Yes, but it's only because we're industry people and I didn't want him to get in trouble, and I didn't want to get in trouble. It was made by fans.
True. So to use a Star Wars phrase, what you told him was true from a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view, yes. David knows Darth Vader too. He cosplays Darth Vader a lot. He goes to a lot of the events. He's part of the 501st or the 501st. And because I grew up in a different upbringing, I grew up as an immigrant, and I wasn't really influenced to a lot of pop culture because I grew up in a very conservative Christian bubble. So I only knew Russian cartoons that were biblical based. So that was like my point of reference. And even though it was this mega sensation, I only saw a small reflection of it through society and everything else, but I wasn't really paying attention. So I didn't really get introduced to Star Wars till I was like 15, where I watched it for the first time and understood what it was. So I didn't have that cultural context. And I didn't even understand how valuable and how impactful this character has been to everyone. So David sat me down and he explained it to me what it felt like to be a kid. I forget if he was like 12 or 13, of what he experienced when he watched it for the first time and why it was such a huge hit. And when he explained it to me, then I understood really how valuable it was, not just as a piece of story, but how valuable as an icon it is and how important it was. And that was supposed to relieve me, but that actually made me more manic because then I understood the value of it. And at that point, I just made a promise to myself, and I was like, I'm gonna approach this 100%, 1,000%. I watched all the movies first of all. I studied all the mannerisms. I got it all down. And coming from the circus, we have like circus grit. We train long hours and for long periods of time because in circus, you don't get good at something, you master something. So I was like, I'm gonna approach it, 10 hours a day. I had my first walking test, camera test with Deborah Chow. And my first homework assignment and the most important assignment in the very beginning was to get a special walk, a certain walk.
The walk.
And that's the walk. And this seems something easy, but I practiced this walk for 1,000 hours.
No, I can imagine. I can imagine. I want to ask you about the walk and the physicality of the role because I know this has been a 9-month project for you. I know I've heard read how physically demanding it was for you, and also mentally demanding, which I want to come on to in a moment. But just to be clear, for people not in the know, so you're credited as Vader performance artist, but the Kenobi production, it goes against the Sith rule of 2 in a way because there's actually 3 of you on camera as part of Team Vader. So just for anyone not in the know, what exactly does Vader performance artist entail?
Okay, so there's actually 6 people who contributed to the role. 6 people who contributed to the role. And then 3 people who are physically shown in the role. And at first, people on the internet were kind of shocked by this, but this actually isn't something new. This is exactly how the old ones were done, how the prequels were done. And not the prequels, the originals. Because in the originals, there was David Prowse. That's who I play. I'm David Prowse. Then there was Bob Anderson, who was an Olympic fencer. That's our stunt Vader, Tom O'Connell. And then there was also Sebastian Shaw, who played the face of Anakin, and he was a theatrical actor. And that's who Hayden Christensen plays. Hayden Christensen plays Anakin Skywalker turned into Darth Vader, right? And the main thing is that we're working as a team to create the best possible product, right? Where it made sense. So everyone focused on their specialties. My whole journey was just the performance. So I'm the Darth Vader performance artist. What that means is I'm the suit actor for Darth Vader. So all the scenes when the helmet is on, all the acting scenes, as Darth Vader in the suit is me. Outside of the fighting and the stunts, which is done by Tom O'Connell, our stunt Vader. And each of us all had our own separate branch of training And then we had a movement coach that kind of linked everyone together so we all looked the same. And the most important thing was that it was about teamwork, and it was about trying to make the best possible Darth Vader. And I believe that we did it. I believe we achieved it. I actually just watched it last night.
Oh wow!
I binged
just
the whole thing. Waited for a while because I went through such a dark place when I was filming,
Yeah.
and I had to do the character right in my own mind.
Hmm.
You know, to do it right, I had to go as far as I could, and I went as far as I could into the darkness, and then I had to crawl my way out. And yeah, we did it right. And it was important for us to put our egos aside and not be like, well, I should do this, or I should do that, or I should do this, and really focus on the things that make sense and makes it the easiest for production to make the best character possible. You know, because we're telling a story and we're working as a team. Now, it would have been confusing to say that 6 people contributed to Darth Vader. So obviously, it's very important to have just one person on the front line, and Hayden Christensen is Darth Vader. He is Anakin. He brought us Anakin, and he brought us the transformation. So in my mind, he's Darth Vader. I'm Darth Dmitrious, the new David Prowse.
Aye. Yeah. So I just realized that when you meant 6, you meant 6, including 3 from the original live action Darth Vader, not 6 who worked on the Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I meant 6 on this one. So we have,
continue.
Okay, so I'll continue. We have Hayden Christensen, Dmitrious Bistrevsky, Tom O'Connell, right? We all, one focused on fighting, one focused on physicality and performance, one focused on really the emotional burden of the connection between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin, right? That is completely necessary to have that. But we also had James Earl Jones do the voice, right? And then we also had Dorian Gregory, who was the on-set voice actor, who did everything on set, because, you know, set hours is 14, 15 hours a day. That's very, very brutal for anyone to film. So we had an on-set voice actor who I worked with specifically, who would deliver the lines either on a loudspeaker or in an ear comm, and then I would react to the lines. Now, I would still have to learn the lines, and in the beginning we tried it, but it would shake the helmet, and we found that I wasn't completely connected with nailing the mannerisms when I was focusing on the lines and focusing on not shaking the helmet and all these other things. So then later on, we had it where the voice actor would do the scenes with intensity, and then I would match the intensity with my performance. And then we also had Olga Sokolova, who was our movement coach, who gave not performance notes, but physicality notes, like pull the head up, make sure the head's not tilting, make sure the helmet's not shaking, make sure the hips aren't swaying. So there's a lot of stuff for continuity to have all 3 of us match each other. And that was the movement coach. So the entire team Vader was 6 people to bring the one character.
Yourself, Hayden and Tom, like you mentioned, you had your own individual roles, but at the same time, did you work closely together at the same time?
It all depended on the filming schedule. You know, Tom and I started boot camp together because we were the ones who were going to be suit heavy. So we started boot camp earlier on, and we did, I forgot, it was like a month and a half of boot camp together, I think. And then we split off, and then he focused only on fighting, and I focused only on performance. And then I kind of pulled away from the rest of the cast, and I had my own individual training specifically for the suit, for the role, and then also having triggers to go in and out of character. So one of the things that we were doing was I was meditating into rage every single day for like 8 months. And that is such a heavy burden to carry if you do it, because it became habitual and it became cathartic. It became a release to go into rage and just really everything. It's like there's this game that I play called the Silver Lining Game. And basically what you do is you find the best in a situation. So you always have a positive outlook. And when I was playing the character, I flipped it where it was the opposite, where I would look for the worst in everything and I would try to find the minute details. And unfortunately, some of the Star Wars fans play this game a lot, where you look for the worst in something and you spiral into something versus focusing on the good in something. But that was part of my character, was being able to find the worst in something and then focus on it intently and then meditate on that until I'd get more and more angry, until I'd start hyperventilating, until my arms would start trembling, and then I'd calm myself down. And I would do this for months so that I could find the character, because this character only plays in extremes. And that was the tricky part about being the suit actor, is that he's either very subtle or he's not. You know, he's either 1% or 100%. And even in the subtlety, you have to find the details and the performance without doing too much and staying true to the character, that he is a master and he's in absolute control of himself at all times, even when he loses.
You really did get involved. And I want to come back to the physical aspect of it shortly, which you did touch on. But just staying with this mental investment that you made that became quite damaging. So you've talked about it there a
Very much
bit, but
so.
there was microdosing on mushrooms. You were smoking cigars, meditating as you mentioned. It got you there. Presumably, it got you there. It got you to the place you wanted to be at for the purpose of filming, but then you couldn't get yourself out of it.
Yeah, I had never encountered this before, but I've also have never done 5 months of prep before a role, 5.5 months of prep. So this was different because I was going, psychologically, I was pushing myself to the absolute limit. I mean, towards the end, because I was microdosing on mushrooms, so I could go deeper into rage and deeper into my emotions, I reached a level where I was so into the Sith content that I was in this paranoid state of mind that I was absolutely by myself against the whole universe. And I became Darth Vader. And halfway through the filming, I started channeling the character. And that was also a bizarre experience because I'd never experienced it. I've heard other people talk about it. And that's where, when we were having the scenes, it no longer was me acting behind a suit. It was me, the emotions were just coming out of me. So all the anger, all the rage, everything, especially when we were facing the final battle, there, when we finished the scenes, I was there. I felt everything. That was the crazy thing, was it was a lot of pain. It was a lot of pain. And the character, I don't want to give any spoilers, but he doesn't kill Obi-Wan Kenobi. Spoiler alert, right?
Yet.
He doesn't kill Obi-Wan Kenobi yet in this series. So in the moment when my character leaves the scene feeling defeated, having an ego death, experience an ego death, where he believes he is the ultimate master and he doesn't succeed the thing that he set out to do. Right? So he has this ego death, and I carried that ego death with me when we finished shooting. So when we finished shooting, when we wrapped, the first thing that happened was the fatigue hit me. Like, I was going at 100 miles an hour for so long that the moment we wrapped, I'm not going to lie, the first day I broke down and cried because this was the craziest journey I have ever been on. And it was such an emotional turmoil of going through the role, but also the burden of playing this character, of knowing that it has to be done right, and once it was done and I let everything go, I broke down and cried immediately when we wrapped, but then I couldn't shake the fatigue. And the fatigue lasted like 3 weeks, where I was just completely drained, didn't have energy to do anything. And then the interesting thing happened was I started realizing that I couldn't shake the character at all. Basically, I would feel him inside of me, like bipolar, where I feel Darth Vader and then I feel myself. What I perceive to be Darth Vader and myself, two separate characters. And Darth Vader would tend to crawl out in any interaction. Whenever I was displeased with someone, I wanted to immediately respond with aggression, with either backhand them or insult them or do something or fight them. And this was my go-to because I had opened up Pandora's box. This is what I had stayed in this mindset for so long, that I didn't want to take crap from anybody. Even what I perceived to be the slightest inconvenience was instantly like, no, and I started feeling it more and more, but because I've been meditating into rage and experiencing this, I could contain myself back, but still feel the emotions. And what was happening was the impulses were getting stronger and stronger, and I was feeling like I had less and less control to hold back. And I was still blowing up on people, and I had all this aggression, I had all this rage, and I had this chip on my shoulder that I had to prove myself, because Darth Vader didn't have a chance to fully prove himself. And I had carried that with me, and I couldn't shake it. So then when I realized, and also I hadn't smiled in like 5 months or whatever, I was in this manic place. So I went on a whole 3-month spirit journey to shake the character and try to find my
3 months. 3 months to come back to the light, if you like. Wow.
And I barely came back to the light.
To the point where, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, where you didn't want to come back for the reshoots as Vader, and also, far more seriously, you were borderline suicidal. Am I right in saying?
Right when we finished, yeah. I was in such a dark place. I went so far psychologically for the role that I was like, this is my golden ticket to prove myself as an actor, as a suit actor. We don't really have too many opportunities that come up like this, like a Darth Vader. So I was ready to pay any price necessary. And a part of it, like I said, I was chain smoking cigars, not healthy at all. I would smoke like 3 to 5 cigars till my lungs burned. And literally I could feel my lungs burning, and my body obviously doesn't want it. I'm an athlete, you know, everything's uncomfortable. And then I'd sit with the nebulizer, and the nebulizer would relieve the burning of my lungs. And then I would meditate with the nebulizer, and I would blame everything on Obi-Wan. And what I realized was that Obi-Wan for Darth Vader is his straw man. It's the one thing he could channel everything on and blame everything so that he doesn't have to take responsibility. And that's what it was for me too, was rather than taking responsibility for my own actions of the hell that I was putting myself through for the role, I was able to channel all that towards Ewan, towards Obi-Wan, right? And I would sit there with the nebulizer, and I would just see, I'd be so mad because my lungs were ruined because of him. It was his fault that he took this away from me, you know. And that's really, so by the time we got to filming, my mind was in this chaotic state where I could easily blame everyone but myself for everything, right? And then in the process, I ended up exploding on a bunch of people. I exploded on a producer, I exploded on my housemates, I exploded on a homeless person. In the sense of, because I was holding so much tension and anger in me that I was always a fuse ready to explode.
You must have been a nightmare to live with.
Yeah, I just kind of distanced myself from everybody, and I kept to myself for the whole time. I became Darth Vader. I had to be by myself because I couldn't be around people. I shouldn't be around people.
Obviously, you push yourself to the limit, and I'm not going to say that's, you know, the right thing to do, the healthy thing to do if you do it again.
It's not the right thing. I will tell you right now, it's not the right thing.
It's not. I was just going to say to you, the result is fantastic. So from that point of view, you know, it seems for me easy to say worthwhile. However, it seems to me like something you probably shouldn't do again. So could you do this role again? And if you did, how would you approach it differently?
I think a big part of it is, the crazy thing was during our reshoots, I made peace with the character. And this was the craziest thing, it was like the full cycle of completing my spirit journey, which was at the very end, I didn't want to do the reshoots because I was terrified of the character. I went on this whole journey where I traveled for 3 months. I visited all my family, reconnected with every mentor that I had. I taught children. I taught free workshops everywhere. I went to Mexico to teach workshops. I was just trying to give as much as I could to try to bring happiness back to my life, you know, because I couldn't find happiness in anything. All I found was just destruction, hate, anger. That's where my mind was at, you know, after we finished. So what ended up happening was I broke my hand at an audition. And when I broke my hand, I'm able to heal myself through meditation by visualizing the stem cells come through, basically just visualizing the power of belief, like the placebo effect, to heal myself. So when I broke my hand, I was in Mexico. I spent the whole time, like 12 hours a day, just staring at my hand to heal it, because it was one of those injuries that I needed surgery, and I didn't get surgery. And if it didn't heal right, I would never be able to do handstands or juggle or do sword work or anything, because it would affect my grip. So it was very important. And because I was able to focus all my awareness on something, which was healing my hand, that's what pulled me out of that mindset, was doing something for my own sake, to help myself, to heal myself. So all this happened, and I finally felt good. And then they called me for the reshoots, and I asked if Tom, or the stunt Vader, if he could do it for me. I was like, you know, my mom's in town. It's really inconvenient. I was trying to think of excuses. I was like, can we just have Tom do it?
Any excuse not to play Darth Vader, which most actors would be, if they just heard that quote in isolation, would be like, what? But of course, there's a reason.
They don't understand the burden that Darth Vader is. Yeah. But so during reshoots, there was this moment where I put the suit on our first day of reshoots. So I had put it on for a fitting test, and I immediately, because of like muscle memory, the moment I put the suit on, the rage came back instantly, like a storm. And the first time I fought it, and the second time I put it on, because we spent, and even when I was on set, I spent most of my time meditating, staying in the mindset. And I'm an avid meditator, and I believe that I can heal myself through meditation, just like Darth Vader. So that's what I did. You know, we're very similar mindsets, both of us, Darth Vader and myself, Anakin and myself. And then as the storm got bigger and bigger and bigger, I heard my own voice in my mind say, "I am a monster." Right? And then I tried to dispute it, but it was true. That was the crazy thing, because it wasn't Darth Vader's voice, it was my voice. And what I realized was that in my mind there was Darth Vader and there was myself, but it was actually the same person. That was the realization, that I was Darth Vader, because I had found so many parallels within Darth Vader and myself, that to play him truly and authentically, I had to expose myself to my shadow self. I had to see myself for who I am and for what I've done and how I've lived my life up to this moment, how I've treated other people and everything else. As I was finding parallels to play the character, I was really exposing myself to myself. And in that moment, when I heard my own voice say, "I'm a monster," I smiled because I knew that it was true. And in that moment that I knew that it was true, the storm went, and that was it. And there was no more battle.
Wow.
Because beforehand, I had found the darkness within myself, and that was a separate character than who I perceived myself to be. And then I realized that that was me. Both aspects were me, the light and the dark.
Were you still able to deliver the same intensity?
Oh, even more.
Oh, okay, but healthier.
Even more, because then I
you.
knew that I didn't have to be afraid of it because it was me. I didn't have to fight it anymore because it was me. And because all this prep work and everything allowed me to go to my absolute peak, to see the darkness within myself, to find the parallels within the character. And when I was doing the character prep for the character, one of the things I was doing was I was researching the worst people in history. All
like
the tyrants,
real life tyrants, right?
Yeah. There's some terrible people in history. And as I was researching them, I was trying to understand why someone would do the things they did and how they could justify it. Because one of the things about playing a villain is that the villain doesn't believe that they're the villain. The villain always believes they're the hero. In the villain's mind, everything is justified. They're not like, I'm a bad guy and I'm doing bad stuff. They're justifying their actions somehow. And that's what allows them to sleep at night and allows them to go as far as they can, whatever it is, whether it's power because of this or this or this. In their mind, they have this kind of jujitsu where they justify everything. So when I was trying to find the parallels, and I was trying to find out how these conquerors and tyrants and Darth Vader and all these characters would justify their actions, when I found the parallels within my own life, within my own memories, within my own experiences, where I haven't always been the best person. And based on those impulses, I found the link between myself and Darth Vader. So now I feel like it will still be a journey if I play him again. It will definitely be a journey, a psychologically dark journey of just being in that mindset all the time. But I won't have to go through the whole chain smoking cigars process, the nebulizer, because I already found the character.
Yeah.
All of that was necessary to find the absolute darkest I could go, the absolute angriest I could go, to the maximum peak so that I could do the character justice. And now that I found it, I feel like I could take it on and put it off. It will still take me some prep, and it'll still be intense, and it'll still be a very difficult journey, but not as difficult as the first time around.
No, a healthier journey. So it's not like you can just flick a switch.
The first journey was not healthy.
Now
it was not healthy.
The journey will be healthy. So you only saw it yesterday, you said, and for anyone watching, we are talking on Monday, the 11th of July, 2022. It's been over and done and dusted for quite a while now. So did you hold off because that's just the way you are as an artist, seeing yourself, or was it because of the journey to recover?
It was because the journey to recover. It was still too close to home, and I was worried that if I watched it, I would get triggered. So I wanted enough time to pass. And then what happened is, as time passed and fans started reaching out to me, and people were thanking me for my performance and telling me how much they liked it, that felt good, and that made me more curious to wanting to watch it. I understood that the suffering was worth it. I was like, this is something that I did, and I'm happy with the work. But psychologically, it was the worst year of my life ever.
Yeah, no, again, I'm not gonna condone the journey, but the results, I think you guys pulled it off and can be very proud of yourself.
Even if I bombed and be like, that was my best, guys. I did everything I possibly could, and I have to walk away with my head held high, knowing that I did everything. And that's what was in the back of my mind as we were filming, because even the suit is extremely uncomfortable. I almost fainted a few times. Both Tom and I had back problems for a little bit. I had back spasms for like 3 months from the suit. It was a very difficult suit to wear, on top of just the burden of everything else. And knowing in the hardest days, in the back of my mind, I was always thinking about the fans. Like, this is what they deserve. They deserve someone who's going to approach this role like a maniac, of like craziness that only a circus artist can.
You mentioned the suit there, and how tough it was, how uncomfortable it was for you guys to wear. I mean, I imagine even when you're chilling on that Mustafar throne, which I imagine that was anything but chill.
Everything
was it comfy, even relaxing in the suit, sitting on that throne? Was that
No.
hard work? No? Okay.
Have you ever seen, I don't know, like a stone bench or something like that? They're not very comfortable.
No.
It's like the whole throne, but the whole point is that Vader isn't a character who's looking for comfort. And that's part of his Jedi training, was that he wasn't allowed to have possessions or attachments, and comfort is an attachment. So his whole thing was, his whole life was the bare minimum, and growing up as a slave, it was the bare minimum. It was already, he had attachments by having his droids. That was already an attachment. But technically, as a Jedi, he's supposed to let go of everything. So when you read the lore in Darth Vader, his like, everything is bare minimum. He just has a bed. He has what he needs. He doesn't have anything extra because he doesn't chase luxury. He's a master, and that was necessary for the role.
No comfort allowed. I mean, I can almost relate to you, as I mentioned, as a guy who wears skinny jeans. That can be quite painful. I'm sure it's on the same level.
Same exact level, yeah. I think the skinny jeans might actually be harder than the 7-layer suit that we wore.
Demetrius, you do not know pain. Then you need to enter my world, not my jeans. I wouldn't recommend entering my jeans, but at least my world of pain. So let's go back to the walk that you mentioned earlier, the physicality side of it. Am I right in saying that? And I find this really interesting. You've talked about the original Vader, the original team, Dave Prowse, but you guys actually didn't just want to honor that version of Vader, the most famous version. You actually wanted to create a fusion of the classic live action and the animated from, say, series like Rebels.
And the video games. That was because, like you said, you have the diehard fans from the original. They don't like things to be changed too much, but they want to also experience nostalgia. That's the feeling about nostalgia, is that nostalgia, the first time we experience something, we have this feeling, and nostalgia is trying to chase that same feeling. But the problem is, the more exposed you are to it, the less you'll have the butterflies, right? So it has to evolve and it has to adapt, but it can't go too far where you lose that feeling. So one of the first important things was to really pay homage to David Prowse. He really set the character. He established the character for what it was at that time, and he became a legend for it. And I feel like in some of the other depictions, we lose some of that. So that was the most important thing, was to have these long power strides, to have his different tempos. And that was one of the amazing things about Vader that aren't always shown in the animated series, is that his power walk is like other people's run, and he doesn't bother if people could keep up with him or not. He just goes. It's like, this conversation is over, Vader out. And then he just goes. And he goes he's got this very fast walk, but he also has different tempos. And then in the animated series, he's more of a poised master, and he's always gliding when he goes. He's always gliding. And we're trying to fuse the two. We're trying to fuse the power and the aggression with the grace and the gliding. We first did the camera test, and then I realized that I had a recurring knee injury. Now, this was very, very subtle. Most people would not pick up on it. It was the most subtle thing, but I had a slight sway when I walked. Very, very subtle. One of my hips don't compensate all the way, so we kind of go kukunk, kukunk, kukunk. And Deborah saw it. Deborah saw it on day one. She saw it, and I got notes for it, but I realized that the notes weren't things that I could correct, that it would always come back if I didn't retrain this habit. So the moment that she gave me the note, and what she saw was, the box would wiggle or would sway, or she would see the helmet tilt. And they were very, very, very subtle. If it was anyone else, they'd probably not say anything and would have got away with it. But the fans would have noticed it. And it's subtle, but it takes you out of the character, because the character is an absolute master. And the moment there's any kind of hiccup, it pulls you out of the moment. So I requested a movement coach, and I worked with a movement coach on retraining my hip. But the thing is, to retrain an injured hip is like impossible. It takes years and years and years. And I did it in a crash course. I didn't have years. I had months.
How long? Months.
Months. I had months. I had 5 months to do it. So we were doing a lot of these like Pilates like exercises to learn how to activate the hip, to close the rib cage, to pull the neck up, to hold the head in place, keep the shoulders level. So we had a lot of these kind of like ballet like body manipulation exercises. And then I practiced to walk every single day for 3 hours. That was part of my routine. 3 hours a day I practiced to walk. 3 hours a day I trained sword. And it was necessary to find the character. Yeah, because for me, it was a master, and I've been around masters. So I know that a master isn't a word you throw lightly, and this is Vader's comeback after 10 years of Obi-Wan hasn't seen him for 10 years. So I walk 3 hours a day, and then I would get tweaked notes from my movement coach, and I would continue the walking.
Man, and I suppose even during filming, you would have you found the groove of the walk. You don't want to break that, so I imagine you are walking like Vader, just going to get your groceries, right?
Yeah. You're constantly reinforcing it because I was living the character, and it was so important because the character is a master. That was the main thing. If it was any other character, from the start, this training wouldn't have been necessary because I was already, I'm a suit actor. I'm already good at what I do, but this was a level of we're trying to achieve perfection, and the perfection is like the last, like these 500 hours. The improvement is so subtle you wouldn't even pick up on it, where it's almost not worth putting in the effort, but it is in the grand scheme of things, because what you see as a viewer and what you experience is that this person's a master. And you only get that from the level of dedication I put into it.
Wow. I mean, that swagger would be great for Black Friday. Nobody would mess with you over that half-price microwave, would they?
No,
I think I need to learn to walk like Vader. I want more respect when I go and do my grocery shopping. The village scene, which I know was you, where Vader's attempting to lure Kenobi out by being pretty mean, it's fair to say. The neck snap on, I think it was a kid, that was pretty grim. And, I've got quite high tolerance levels when it comes to violence, fictional violence, but I felt like I saw enough. Was it ever more? I actually think they got the right level, by the way. I think they could have pushed it further, but I think they got the right level. Was it ever more brutal in the script or in what you initially shot for that scene?
I think as we were doing rewrites, I think it was more tame, and they were gradually becoming more brutal. It was necessary to establish, because we've already have this level of fear for Darth Vader and level of respect. But if we played the character exactly how it was played in the originals in our day and time, people would destroy it, because we have established other characters in the Marvel universe and video games that are much stronger and much more aggressive. So we now know that Darth Vader is the most iconic villain, and he was the worst of the worst to become Darth Vader. He was worse than the sisters cutting off someone's hand. So that was, we had to push the boundaries to establish this is the new Darth Vader. This is the new standard. I personally, because I was in that mindset, I wanted to go as dark as possible. I was like, let's go. And I hope if there ever is like a Vader spin-off show, I hope that we get to explore how dark we could go with it.
Because you are a student of Vader. You are Vader, but you also are a student of the character, all the studying that you went through. I saw something, to be honest, I didn't read the full interview, so I just saw something, but may well have been out of context, that in one of the original versions from the original writer, Vader won the duel with Kenobi. Do you think he should have won that final duel?
I think he is not yet a master. So I don't think he should have won it, because he has to be put in his place. Because what happens next is the interesting part. Is what happens after the ego death. So here you are, your ego gets built, right? You think you've plateaued, you've hit your peak, and then you have your ego death, and you crumble all the way back down, and you realize you're not as good as you thought you were. And then from there is the climb up, and that climb up is the interesting part, because you surpass what you originally were, tremendously surpass, right? So this is a moment where he now has a chip on his shoulder, and he has to prove himself. And this is the Vader that everyone becomes afraid of. Is the Vader that goes solo to planets and conquers entire planets by himself, destroys cities, lays waste to armies. This is the person who reignites that spark. That spark for him was Kenobi, and that was if he beats his master, then he will become a master. And then he realizes that he cannot beat his master at the state that he was in. And that is humbling. And that humbling experience is what allows him to go even darker and even further into the dark side and become the Darth Vader that everyone fears, to become the legend of Darth Vader.
Yeah, and
so
also
I think he's supposed to lose. He's supposed to lose.
Yeah, no, I buy that. I prefer that version. And also for me, the line in A New Hope, episode 4, to paraphrase, when I left you, I was just a learner. Now I am the master. He's been on another journey since that meeting.
He's been on a journey, his own journey of darkness, but it's his own journey also. He has his own villain's journey, which is very parallel to the hero's journey.
Just finally, I think the Qui-Gon Jinn, Liam Neeson cameo was very much expected, and it was teased as well from the get-go with the series, as well as rumored beforehand. Something that was a bit more surprising for viewers, certainly me who doesn't read the leaks and what have you, was the Emperor appearing, which of course would have been you chilling in that throne in actually going through hell. Did you know you were talking to the Emperor, or were you just sitting there doing random lines, random movements to a random character?
The Emperor I didn't know. The Emperor I didn't know. That was a surprise to me. Yeah.
We spent all this time talking about some guy called Darth Vader, but the real Star Wars highlight for you, I would say, is, as according to Wikipedia, so I'm sure it's true, unidentified Quarren Trawler from Mando Season 1. Is that true?
Yep. That's true. I'm in the opening scene of The Mandalorian. Right? I am the first death in The Mandalorian.
Wow.
Yep, I'm the one who gets cut by the door.
It's quite a promotion to go from that to Darth Vader.
Yeah. But it's even crazier because, like, part of writing my book is retelling my story and realizing how much I've been intertwined with Star Wars without realizing it. So we have a comedy show called Jimmy Kimmel Live. I don't know if you've seen it. Mm-hmm. And they did a sketch with Harrison Ford with Adele song, Hello from the Other Side. And I played Chewbacca in that sketch. And I got to hang out with Harrison Ford, and I got to hug Harrison Ford, and we did a whole scene together. And this was way, way before. This was like 5-6 years ago.
What?
Yeah.
Star Wars won't leave you alone.
Without even, we didn't even know each other at the time. We were just like floating around. And then also the Jedi with the GoPro 2 on YouTube. Look it up. Mm-hmm. Is a great, great short. And I play Darth Vader in that.
It's destiny, right?
Yes.
Dmitrious, or Darth Dmitrious, I really appreciate your time and thank you.
It was fun. It was great to chat.